tuned into InvisiYouth Chat Sessions, a video podcast series. Our episode starts right now. Here's your host, Dominique Vale.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the InvisiYouth Chat Sessions, where we can check in for your dose of stigma-breaking, humor-filling, motivation-empowering, life hacks and motivation tips for all of the medically adultish people in your life. I'm Dominique Vale, the founder of InvisiYouth and the host of the Chat Sessions, and today is special for a couple different reasons. It is Season 2, Episode 25, and also it's the first time we're having a returning guest on the Chat Sessions, and he is also one of my very dearest friends. It's Mr. Travis Flores.
Right.
Hello! Returning. I'm going to give you a whole bio of just like racking off all of your life accolades in a mini moment here. Travis is an award-winning children's book author, actor, philanthropist, executive producer, and motivational speaker. Just in 2019 alone, Travis's book, The Spider Who Never Gave Up, is celebrating its 15th anniversary. You can buy that on his website, travisflores.org, and just search it on Google as well. Shameless plug. He has been an executive producer working with Donate Life, which is building so many wonderful campaigns and encouraging organ donation. And he has also been featured in Season 4 of the CW's My Last Days, which is a series created by the Jane the Virgin actor and director of 5 Feet Apart, Justin Baldoni. Now Travis, and especially his stories with his current life journey, his love story, and his current journey needing a third double lung transplant, has brought Travis even further into the public eye and getting to share his amazing platform and the wonderful and empowering projects and Travis's wonderful spirit that I love so much. He's been able to share that with so many outlets like Out Magazine, BuzzFeed, Forbes, Radio Disney, Access Hollywood Live, so much more, and on top of all of those, he's on the InvisiYouth Chat Sessions, which is better than all. There we go. So
that's number one.
That's number one. You heard it here. We're making that a GIF, and I'm repeating it now. Hello, Travis. Welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so glad to be your first returning guest, and congratulations on a quarter century.
Yay, thank you.
25 episodes.
I know, so many milestones with you. And, you know, just 2019, nothing new's happened. It's been really boring the last few months. Nothing's going on for you.
No, there's nothing new. It's just been kind of a no. There's been a lot going on. It's been insane to say the least.
Yeah.
Good and bad. I mean, but that's everyone's life, you know. You can't have a ton of good without some bad, and you can't have a ton of bad without a little bit of good. So that is my life right now, and I feel like right now it's a little bit more difficult and a little bit more challenging than I'd like it to be.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that I'll get through a third transplant. I have to get listed first, and I'm really, really relying on UCLA for that. But, you know, it's a decision I have to make, and it's a difficult one to make. So,
absolutely.
Yes.
No, absolutely. And I always tell everyone you're one of the strongest but most sort of authentically transparent people through your activism that I know. So,
thank you.
Of course. And that's why I love having you on the show as well, because you really not only sort of use your life story and your activism to really raise so much positive awareness for the chronic illness community, but you also really just give a lot of authentic empowerment that kind of, like you said, shows the good and the bad, all of the aspects of a life with chronic illness or disability. So it's really something that so many listeners and viewers can relate to. So I'm super thankful to have you on the show again.
Yeah, and I think it's important that people talk about the bad. You know, life isn't full of rainbows and butterflies. It is definitely matched with quite a few dark moments, and if we don't talk about those things, then the second you're in it, you feel alone.
Yeah.
And that's not a fun feeling either. So when people are going through difficult times, I don't want them to feel alone on top of that. So I really do try to be authentic and transparent about that. So I appreciate you noticing that.
Of course.
In my building, by the way, so I don't know if you hear that. I apologize if you do, but
this is the true life of, see, good and the bad. We're taking Travis's motivation on top of construction. So So going off of that, we're going to jump right into our first segment with Travis, which is First Few Words.
First Few Words.
First few words is, like we always say with so many young adults, they always say those first few words of getting those conversations started can be super challenging at times, trying to figure out what to say to friends or family or people you just meet, and vice versa, what our support networks can say to us to get conversations started, to really get things moving forward and to build and break through those uncomfortable moments and really create some positive change. So with this segment with Travis, we're really going to be talking about the different things that are in our sort of conversational toolkit, ways that we can really break through different scenarios and come up with different options, or as I like to say, different words of chat up phrases. So kind of jumping right in, I know something we've always talked about, and I know with InvisiYouth we get so many questions, is that a lot of young adults feel that when they talk about their chronic illness, there's so much stigma and misconception that there's such a negative reliance on the chronic illness experience, that they're so dependent on other people. There's a weakness element because of your chronic illness, always needing support or being unable to do things. So that even on your end, I know you've talked about it before as well, especially with guys in the chronic illness community, this seems to just be even more of a problematic situation. Yep. So kind of going more on, why do you think that stigma sort of remains, and then especially with your own experience being a guy in the chronic illness community, what does that then look like for them?
Well, I mean, look at our media. The way that we portray illness in media right now is one of two ways. You're either super, super ill and you're dying and you have somebody that's taking care of you, and eventually the character passes away, and then that story becomes about the person who took care of them and their journey through life after. Or it's about somebody who's so strong, who doesn't need help, who's battling through illness, who gets through it without a problem, and then tells their story and inspires a ton of people. And there is no realistic middle there, which is sometimes you need help. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you need people to help you. And other times you may feel like you're the strongest person in the world. Yeah. And other times you may feel like you just want to let go. It is okay to feel everything. And I, right now, my life is so, like I said, complicated that I need help. My mom is living with my husband and I right now. And she and my husband both are taking turns taking care of me. Yeah. And I'm not ashamed of that. And I think that for men, especially in this community, it's important for them to be able to say, I need support. Yeah. Because if they can't ask for help, then it's going to be really hard for them to get through the problems they're already facing. Again, it's like, why make someone feel lonely on top of feeling sick? So that's just my thoughts on that.
No, absolutely. I really love how you said that too, that it is a lot of sort of the public perception of what sort of how strength is viewed, or how illness is only on two sort of polar ends of the spectrum. Yeah. There is no entire middle ground. So even kind of going off of that too, what do you think, what words or what phrasing would you want to see sort of within the chronic illness community used to describe one another, or even especially with the male chronic illness community, and words or phrasing that you think would be better to represent everyone?
Well, I think we have to break away from this idea that if you're sick, you have to look sick. Mm-hmm. So I face that a lot right now, and I'm incredibly ill. Yet I'm not. I'm sorry, my cat's meowing.
I do. No, I'm like, wait, we need to make a quick appearance or shout out to your cat, because your cat's adorable.
Somewhere he just wants him. He wants to be known.
I love your cat so much. Okay, continue.
But, I don't look necessarily too sick right now. I'm very pale, but that's for other reasons. But I am very sick, and I'm not on oxygen, although some days I really do feel like I need it. I don't necessarily qualify for it. But we need to break away from this idea that you have to look sick to be sick. And for phrasing, I think it comes down to, instead of like the very careful, like, how are you? Like, I can't, I already feel fragile enough. I don't need to feel like somebody's going to break me with their words. I want people to approach us in a way that's like empowering, but still making sure you're okay.
Yeah.
Just say, you look good. Do you need anything? Like, that's a better way to just do this whole thing, is just to be really direct. Tell them they look okay. Don't make it feel like they're gonna, collapse in your arms. Like, it's a real thing right now where people are approaching me, especially every day.
Yeah.
So careful of how to ask me how I am, which I totally respect, but I'd appreciate if people were just more direct.
Yeah. Don't using conversation with kid gloves in sort of a way is sort of a big issue. Yeah.
Yeah, we need to be more direct with each other and say, do you need help?
Yeah.
Like, instead of waiting for somebody to ask for help, offer it.
Yeah. Exactly. And even going off of that, I think a big thing that really touches on what you're even talking about is something that I'll always say. And when we get some of the few guys that will DM InvisiYouth, but then they'll always right away say, oh, I'm not sure if I'm ready to work in your leadership program publicly or do volunteer work that people would see me with the charity because of me coming into it with a chronic illness. I always say you have to treat calling somebody strong and calling somebody vulnerable as a synonymous term. Saying vulnerability is a strength instead of strong means you're not going to be vulnerable or authentic or need support.
Yeah.
They do go hand in hand so often.
Absolutely. I think being vulnerable takes more strength than anything else in this world. Like, to be open, authentic, and completely share yourself with the world, that is the strongest thing you could do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I even wanted to kind of go off of that. What would be sort of the words that you would want to associate? Obviously, you talk so often in interviews and everything, but words that you associate with yourself, not only as a man with a chronic illness, but a man that's successful and happy and loved by your family and friends and the husband. So what are kind of words that you use to phrase the entire sort of person that you are?
This sounds really silly, but just a guy.
Just a guy. That's what I'm going to name this this Travis Flores, just a guy.
Like, I really don't see my life or situation as anything spectacular. I think what I'm going through is something that thousands of people go through. Needing a third transplant is something that a lot of people face.
Yeah.
I am pushing for it, which is something that I think does take a level of strength.
Yeah.
Because I have to be prepared for the fight. But honestly, I don't really want to be identified. I'll tell you one thing that's really been hard for me to cope with the last few months in particular has been all the wording around death and dying with my name.
Yeah.
Those are not words that I have ever associated with. I've always been survivor, fighter, activist. Like, I've never been Travis Flores dying.
Yeah.
But recently, that's become really synonymous with my name.
Yeah.
And it's been very uncomfortable to adjust to that. I think for me in particular, I've learned that in order to get people's attention and to get the media to acknowledge you, you have to use words like that.
Yeah.
And that's really sad. It's sad that I have to change my identity of who I am to have a chance to survive. Because if I don't acknowledge these words, if I don't embrace these words in the articles that are coming out about me right now, then people aren't going to care. And I have to survive. In order to survive, people have to care. It's such a challenging position to be in right now. But if I had a choice, I would love to just be Travis, the normal guy. Like, I would love more than anything to be that.
No, and I love that you said that too, that sometimes there are, like you said, even as a friend as well, seeing sort of that position of talking about death in immediate conjunction with your name and so many titles as a friend it feels frustrating. Then I feel frustrated for you, frustrated that it has to happen, but then seeing you really sort of take the strong step of going, this is not the terminology I want to use to define myself, but I'm going to really sort of find a way of harnessing my own strength within what is how it's being used, is something that I think so many young people could say, because so many people will then associate their health struggles with their immediate identity, and that'll be the sort of first identifier, but it's really how you then try to embrace who you are as that second step of what words people want to use, and you then embracing it to then identify yourself is something I think is a really good tip for people to do.
I think that, Claire Wineland did a really fantastic job at balancing that, the death and dying terminology, with her incredible brand of just life and purpose. I just don't know how to do that yet.
Yeah.
And so as more of the media is coming out and more, it's becoming, it gets emotional because
no, of course,
it becomes more real.
Yeah.
When I see articles that say dying and Travis Flores dying, and it's just really real.
Yeah.
Because it's out there, and there's a certain level of privacy that you want to keep.
Yeah.
But there's a certain level of privacy you have to let go of, because if you don't, then people won't help you.
Yeah.
And when you need a third transplant, you need everyone to help, or it just won't happen. So I'm trying to balance it.
Yeah. And I love, and like you said too, it really is sort of not only getting comfortable with different words that are used, but then just even being comfortable growing publicly and sort of showing those, I don't want to say showing those scars, but in a way sort of showing those hiccups or bumps along the way, is something that shows a real strength within yourself, and showing that journey that so many people don't feel comfortable publicly talking about.
And I think also, I have to give a lot of credit to the editors and podcast hosts like you, and just people in general who know how to pick the titles that catch the attention of people.
Yeah.
Because as hard as it is to read that, my name is becoming more known with death and dying, I know that the editors who are choosing those titles for the articles are doing it because they know it'll help.
Yeah.
So I give a lot of credit to people like yourself as well, because you know how to tap into the media and to share a story. So I appreciate that too.
Yeah, even going off of sharing stories, I know that's something that's it's a big part of your just all of your work with your producing, with your acting, obviously, with you being an author as well. I wanted to kind of even sort of end this segment kind of talking about that, is what are sort of tips that you would give to other young people or young adults in the chronic illness community that are trying to sort of become their own author and the leader of their own story, whether that's personally or professionally, how they want to sort of take the reins on what their story would be and how they talk about it?
Sure. I think right now one of the best ways to do that is through Instagram. I think that Instagram has become almost a mini blogging platform for a lot of people with illness.
Yeah.
And it's quite incredible, the stories that bring people together through Instagram. And I think that if you're wanting to tap in and become a leader within your community with your own story, I think Instagram's a great place to start. Look at other people who are sharing their stories, identify what makes yours unique. And then try to connect with those people that fascinate you. so that you can learn how to tell your story. Learning how to tell my story has been something that's taken 15 years. And I'm obviously still learning how, because there's new terminology coming into my story this year that I have to learn to work into it and to make positive.
Yeah.
So I think that's the main way to go. And also be positive. You know, when you're telling your story, show that hardship that you're going through, but try to also be a positive influence, because people want to read stories that are authentic, but they want to read stories that give them hope. So if you want to be that person to be a leader in your community, you have to be one that's willing to give hope too.
Yeah, no, I love that. And even like you said, it's selling yourself, like body, mind, and soul, not always in that order, especially with the chronic illness community. It's really, like you said, finding others that you really emulate and see the way that there's so many people, even in myself through InvisiYouth, with finding people not even in my sort of chronic illness experience of the types of rare diseases I have, and going in and finding somebody in the cancer community, or like yourself in the CF community, that we have so many similar aspects in terms of our work ethic, our philanthropic sort of mindset. We have the same sense of sarcastic humor, which makes friendship so much easier. So even on that end, it's different in terms of me relating to people with the same chronic illness journey, but then also different facets of myself, my relationship well-being, my mental well-being, and finding others that you really can connect to, and then sharing your story by learning from other people.
Right. Absolutely.
And speaking of sharing stories, we're going to go into our intermission segment with Travis, where Travis gets to tell me a story. So we're going to go into So That One Time.
So that one time.
So That One Time is our intermission, where I let our guests, who are experts at their lives, use a life story to empower us to hit those strong, vulnerable points, or to make us laugh anywhere across the life spectrum. And they're a surprise to me as the host, so I get to sit back and you get to listen and watch the lovely Travis tell me a story.
So it can be anything.
Anything, whatever you want.
Let me think what would be a good story to tell you here. So there was a time when I was a child, and I was being admitted quite a lot. And we're talking every couple of months. I was in the hospital for a month. And I had at that point kind of become an expert of the hallways of Cincinnati Children's Hospital. And I can't believe I'm telling this story.
I'm so excited.
I used to take walks late at night with my mom, and it got to a point where I was getting to be more of like a preteen, and I would want to stay up later, obviously.
Yeah.
So she would want to go to bed, and I would have to figure out who was going to take me on a walk, because I couldn't leave the floor alone. Mm-hmm. Well, it wasn't supposed to. So one night, I told my nurse that I had forgot something in the playroom, in the teen room, and I had to go get it, which was out of the nurse's station site. Ooh. So I went to go get it, and I ended up staying in the teen room and playing for a while. And this was at like 11:30 at night. So there was no one there, and I was definitely not being smart. I was wearing gloves, gown, mask, so it wasn't like I was spreading bacteria everywhere. And I was only playing the PlayStation, so it wasn't like I was putting everything on, like everything there. I just wanted to play PlayStation. Well, my respiratory therapist caught me.
Oh no.
And he asked me what I was doing, and I said that I wanted to go for a walk. And he said, okay, fine. I'll take you for a walk. You can't do this again. So he took me for a walk, and this is the part that I can't believe I'm saying. He took me for a walk, And he took me down to the morgue.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the morgue. And there was no one there, obviously. But I think he was trying to, I don't know, scare me. But what he didn't realize is I'm a morbid person.
Oh no.
So I found that very fascinating. So every night after that, I would ask somebody to take me for a walk and ask them to take me down to the basement because I was curious to what was going on in the morgue.
Oh my God.
And the reason I'm telling this story is because it influenced a character in my TV series, Sort of Supportive.
Woo woo.
There's a character that in that story, his name is Thackeray, like Hocus Pocus, Thackeray Binks, who's based loosely on the kind of person I thought I would have seen had there been somebody working in the morgue when I went down late at night. But yeah, that's a creepy story I've never told anyone before. I used to sneak down out of the hospital into the morgue.
Oh my God. Oh, how long did these morgue trips last though?
Like when I would do it?
Yeah, like how many times would we?
Oh, how many times? Well, I mean, many times.
Many. We're in double digits.
Yeah, like over the course of 2 or 3 years.
Oh my God, I love it.
But I was you have to realize I was such a perceptive kid.
Yeah.
Like I understood my own mortality. So I was fascinated with what happens after. And I still am to this day.
Yeah.
A little bit differently. Now I don't go to morgues. Instead I write and I create. But I was fascinated by it. Not in a weird way, just like in a way that's like, if I pass away, is this what happens to me?
Yeah.
But yeah, and it all started so innocently, playing PlayStation late at night in the teen room. Then my respiratory therapist tried to scare me, and it ends up turning into a huge fascination.
Yeah, so good job to your respiratory therapist, because his teaching lesson did not work.
Yeah, no, it didn't. It inspired a character though, so that's good.
So technically, it paid itself forward.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I feel like you and I, at 13-year-old version of you and I, would have totally just embraced that morgue experience, being like, do you want to go again on Thursday?
Yeah, like we would have morgue dates for sure.
Oh, for sure. That would definitely, oh my God, that would just, now I have like 7 bizarre life experiences in my head that I would just want to experience down there. Oh my God. So before I get on that weird morbid tangent with Travis, we're just going to switch out of it. So I don't do that on the show.
We'll do that later.
Yeah, when we hang this up, then I'll tell you. We're going to go into our next segment with Travis, talking about our ideal world, not an ideal morgue experience, but an ideal world experience in our segment In an Ideal World. In an ideal world, often we always talk about, especially in the chronic illness and disability community, and especially in the work that we do at InvisiYouth, and Travis being an activist and a motivational speaker, we talk about improving society and what ideal parts of our life could be with embracing the chronic illness and disability community and ways that we can do that. But obviously, it's a little bit challenging to lift that big boulder all on your own. So we talk about ways that we can lift those boulders in small ways, bring other people into this, and being able to improve the general society and the chronic illness disability society as well as oh my God, I brain fucked. Also, that's the word I was looking for. Okay. Oh God. I'm going to start with Travis going. In an ideal world, I know we always talk about people wouldn't be questioning our capability based on what our health is capable of doing, sort of in a physical sense. So really, what would be some ways you would suggest for young adults that are really trying to find their path of life, whether that's professionally or personally, and trying to build a life for themselves while they have a chronic illness?
So you're asking me Can you rephrase the question?
Yeah, what would be some ways you would suggest for young adults that are trying to sort of build their own sort of identity and build their path, and how they would be able to do that in a comfort with their chronic illness?
So for me, I think when I was growing up, I tried to hide my chronic illness a lot when I was going into the professional world. I thought it would affect me negatively, and it did in some ways. Which is why I think I tried to hide it for so long.
Yeah.
But I realized that when I embraced it and when I played on the strengths of it, that's when I started to really become successful. So, for instance, I'm executive producing material, and I chose to executive produce material that helps donate life. And donate life directly helps people like me.
Yeah.
So I really played on my strength there of going to the organization and saying, hey, I really get what you're doing, and I really want to help you tell that story. And I want to be able to do it authentically and to help you raise awareness and organ donation registration.
Yeah.
They loved that. So I think that one of the best things that people can do with chronic illness is look within themselves and say, okay, where can I go that I can use the chronic illness as a strength? And really build on that. So a lot of people who have chronic illness are also very, very, very smart about their illnesses and very tapped into the medical field. Sometimes I feel like we could be our own doctors.
Yes.
And I find that a lot of people are really, really great nurses who have chronic illness.
Yeah.
So I really think just playing into your strengths of what your chronic illness has made you good at. It's like a superpower. Use it as that.
Yeah. I always like to joke to my many, many doctors. I got my medical degree from Chronic Illness University. You haven't heard of it, but I've been a student for 10 years.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah, and I love how you said that too. It's sort of you really using your chronic illness as a strength, but then also really looking at what you personally enjoy outside of your health and sort of tapping into it as like even an access, sort of that bottom piece on your resume of special skills. You would be sort of using it as sort of a special skill. Even like you said, also really using knowing you don't have to do this entire life journey on your own. It's sort of really harnessing into your family, your friends, your support network, the larger illness support network, charities like mine and activists like yourself, really being able to then, I know you have Yellow Heart Squad, and that really builds a whole network as well, of really knowing that it does take a village to get things done. So embrace yourself in a village of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the more people that you surround yourself with that enjoy the things that you love, you'll likely come across someone else in that community who has a chronic illness themselves. I can't tell you how many actors I've met who have chronic illness who are afraid to open up about it.
Yeah.
Because they're afraid it's going to affect their career. And we shouldn't feel that way.
Yeah.
There are plenty of roles out there of characters who have chronic illness or disability that we should be playing. But for some reason, people are cast who are normal, able-bodied, healthy people in those roles.
Yeah.
And that's not really fair to our community, because there's plenty of us who are artists who want to be that as well.
Yeah. And I love how you said that too. It's surrounding yourself with believers and not surrounding yourself with critics. It's really using what critics and using those the disparaging sort of thought of seeing not accurate representation on camera or in film or TV or media, but really taking that sort of critical moment and then using the people who believe in your positive representation and diverse representation, and really then sort of taking those steps with those people to then rectify a situation.
Right. Yeah.
And even kind of going off of that too, I know we kind of tapped on it in the beginning, but I wanted to talk to you about in an ideal world on our end, we always hear about sort of this PC culture, this politically correct culture that we're in now, and especially with the chronic illness community and even within sort of the masculinity discussion with chronic illness. There's so much, we always say that even at InvisiYouth, when we're putting captions on Instagram posts or Twitter, you want to make sure you're being as sort of PC friendly as possible. But I wanted to talk to you about that, what you think, what are some of these sort of politically correct sort of stigmas that people feel that are within the chronic illness or even in the masculinity and chronic illness discussion that make it challenging?
What I think is really funny about this PC culture, which I totally respect, I think we do need to be more conscious of what we say to people and how we say it.
Yeah.
But what I think is funny about it is the people who should be paying attention to that, like people in the White House, don't. So I find it very, very upsetting that we have a world of people who are saying, let's figure out how to respect people. And then you have the people who should be just respecting people without even a thought, who are disrespecting us every day.
Yeah.
It's so ass backwards, and I don't understand it. So I had to say that first. The thing about being politically correct is there is also too much. I think there is a point where somebody could try to be almost too politically correct that it insults you.
Yeah.
Like if somebody's trying to define me, and they're like, well, he's, how do we describe him? That's almost like insulting in itself. That's why I said earlier, I just want to be just Travis Flores the guy. Like,
yeah.
but if I had to really pick on the words that, for me, identify what I would be comfortable with, it would be somebody within the LGBTQ community, somebody within the chronic illness community. The disability community is a community that I feel I'm close to, but I have a hard time saying I'm disabled when I have seen so many people who are truly disabled.
Yeah.
I really struggle with that because I've seen people who can't move their limbs. Oh, I just got choked up. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I've seen people who are truly disabled. So when people say that I'm disabled, I understand sometimes they don't know how to phrase what it is I'm going through, so they say a disability.
Yeah.
But really, I'm not disabled until the very end, when I'm hooked up to oxygen in a hospital bed dying.
Yeah.
Then I'm disabled. But being called disabled right now is not something I think is correct. And that may be different for other CF patients, I don't know, or transplant patients. But for me, that's how I feel. With masculinity, that's a whole other thing. Like, I am not very masculine, as you can tell. And I don't really care. Like, I'm really fluid about that. I don't need to be, and I said this on my last days.
Yeah.
I don't need to be lifting 100-pound weight to prove how strong I am.
Yeah.
Like, I think what I've been through kind of proves that for itself. So yeah, for me, I really identify with chronically ill, because my life has been chronic. It's just chronic.
Chronic period. That's it. No, and also that, like, when you mentioned that clip, that was probably one of the best sound bites that they had through your season on My Last Days, because it was just such an accurate depiction in such a short amount of time that was so representative of you, but then also really being able to tap into probably one of the most singular feelings that we'll always hear with guys coming into InvisiYouth more behind the scenes. It's that is one of the most synonymous feelings that they have, is that their version of strength isn't media-friendly version of strength, and they don't know how to explain that to people.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not muscular at all. I'm very, very thin, especially right now. I'm doing everything I can to gain weight, but it's not easy, and that's just a part of cystic fibrosis and then also chronic organ rejection. It takes a lot of energy to continue to fight every day.
Yeah.
It makes it hard to gain weight. So, as you said, I'm definitely not the media-friendly version of masculine. I'm not a Hugh Jackman type. I am very much almost lady figure-like. Actually, I should not have said that. I take that back because that.
I was going to say, you have some damn good bone structure, Travis. Let's give it to you.
It's all sexist of me to be like, I have a figure of a lady. When there's all kinds of body types. What I'm trying to say is I'm very, very, very thin.
Yeah.
And that is not what the media expect when you say masculine.
Mm-hmm. No, but even kind of going off of that too is really. Giving advice to people that when a lot of young adults feel that they're being labeled in that way, that sort of even friends or family or professors or coworkers feel like they're labeling them and labeling their capability, what would you suggest to people that want to then vocalize that they're not happy with some of the descriptors that people around them are using?
Well, for me, I'm just blunt.
No.
I'm probably not the best person to ask that because I'll just tell somebody how it is.
Yeah.
And that is just I think the 28 years of dealing with a chronic illness meets living in New York City for part of my life meets just being completely done with politics and how people don't respect people. Like I don't handle it well. So when somebody says something to me that is off tone, or critical of me, or, I used to get all the time, you should probably eat a cheeseburger.
Like,
and
thanks, buddy.
I used to just be like, yeah, I probably should. You would not want to see how I'd react to that today. I think the best thing somebody could do is try to be as calm and honest and open as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I have these conversations a lot with my dad. My dad has learned over the years how to respect me and talk to me when he's concerned. When he gets concerned, he gets very aggressive. Mm-hmm. He says, "Look, you need to gain weight. Because he's scared." But I've over time learned how to talk to him so he can talk to me, and that's taken time. So I would suggest people just calmly talk to their family and friends and say, look, I know that I don't look this way, or I know I may not be as healthy as what you would like, but I'm doing my best and I need your support, not your criticism. And so like the other day, my dad and I were FaceTiming and he said, "You look great." And I said, "Thanks." And he goes, "Are you eating enough?" So that to me was like, he's concerned about my weight, but he wants to compliment me first. And it's kind of going on that thing that I said, if you're going to walk up to me, don't act like you're going to break me. Yeah. Which is asking how I'm doing. Yeah. So I think, you got to be honest and open with your family and friends if it's bothering you.
Yeah, and like you said too, if you invest the time in that conversation, you're investing in yourself having a more positive experience and interaction with people around you, which is probably the great thing. And even kind of going off of that too, when you were talking, I was thinking about sort of I'm very blunt, obviously. Prior to getting injured, I was just very sarcastic in how I spoke to people. I was very blunt with my opinions. And then when you have a chronic illness and dealing with that injury, dealing with a rare diseases and not having diagnosis, when people say, "What's wrong with you?" and you're going, "I've been to 35 doctors, they don't even know." And so how do you explain that to people in their 20s that are sort of your peers or your coworkers? I've always been sort of a strong believer of using my sort of sense of humor to sort of diffuse the situation, to sort of, as I say, thaw out my insecurity or my discomfort in how people would describe me, or even it took me, it'll be almost 11 years since my injury, and it took me about 5 or 6 for me to be comfortable with people saying that I was chronically ill. I hated the term. I didn't think I was sick enough. I didn't want to have that on me. That I didn't think I was sort of the poster child of chronic illness, because my health always changed weekly, how it multi-organ system and how it was evolving and affecting my health. So I always had such a weird hang up with it, but it was really allowing myself to sort of take that ownership of knowing I'm comfortable when I'm humorous to people. And if I feel a sting in how even a coworker is addressing or introducing me to people and saying, oh, this is Dominique, she owns a charity because she's really sick, and so she helps all these sick people. And I'll be like, okay. And so then I use my humor to kind of thaw out that discomfort I felt, and then people will kind of join in, and then they feel comfortable to then ask questions, and I'm comfortable then addressing where that sort of that stigma was then brought to me. So that's even on your end as well, using your voice, but then finding ways that you feel comfortable talking to people, and using that as sort of your tool of communication is great.
Yeah, I think something I really admire about you is your strength and ability to diffuse the way that you're saying, using humor. Mm-hmm. I wish I could be more like that. I think I've just spent so much of my life feeling insecure.
Yeah.
That we've reached a point where when somebody tries to label me in such a harsh way, I just don't handle it well. And I'm not rude or anything. I try to make people aware of how uncomfortable it makes me.
Yeah.
I don't like being labeled as sick. Because I don't want to think of myself as 24/7 being sick. Mm-hmm. It is true that I am going through something right now that is acutely ill, but I don't want to think of myself as just being a sick person, when I'm so much more. I'm doing so much with my life, and trying to.
Yeah.
That just using the words, "This is Travis, he's sick." It's just that I don't like that. I'd rather be Travis the guy.
Yeah. You'd be like, no. Be like, hold on. I'm not Travis the sick guy. I'm Travis the guy who does all these things. And somewhere within there, I'll throw in chronically ill, and then we'll just throw that in as one of the 5 layers.
Chronically ill is different than sick.
Yeah.
It makes sense. It is.
Yeah.
Chronically ill is like, there's a condition. It's been a long time. Maybe there's been really down lows, but maybe he's doing well. Whereas sick is like the active verb. Like like right now I am sick. Like I literally have a virus. So I'm sick, and I agree to that.
No, and I like that you said how I've always, I said if we could pick a catchphrase for the charity, it would be saying that I'm chronically ill, I'm successful and happy, and every day that order changes based on how I'm doing, which one comes first, second, and third. But those are 3 sort of active traits within my personal identity that sort of shift during the day as well. If I'm having a flare-up, or if my health is doing okay and I'm able to really push work-wise, I feel successful more than chronically ill. Or other days I'm out with friends, and like right now I'm talking to one of my friends, so clearly number 1 on my list is happy, and we move down from there. But that, like you said as well, it's really sort of taking that ownership of when you feel a discomfort. Ideally you want to then advocate for yourself with anyone that's around you, because you would expect someone to do that. If you were making a comment or a descriptor that would offend somebody else, you would hope that they would say it to you and not just sort of sit on it and get very frustrated. You would want someone to do that for you.
Sure, I'd want somebody to tell me, absolutely.
And even kind of going off of that, we're going to go into, I sort of talked about Travis giving his sort of powerful tips of living life and his path of just thriving as a baller human being and just the guy he is. So we're going to go into our next segment, Path to Power.
Path to Power.
Empower has all of our different moments and how-tos on owning your health, owning your career, and owning your life. So we go through with Travis talking about the different ways that you can begin that path of your own power. So question number 1, I want to know how you sort of empower yourself on the daily basis with your life and enjoying your work, but you're also simultaneously living with a chronic illness and having so many different experiences on that end coming into your daily fold. So what are ways you like to empower yourself daily?
Well, right now, I think my life is a little different than what I'd like it to be, just because I am dealing with chronic rejection.
Yeah.
But I try to empower myself right now by just knowing that if I don't stay active, then I don't have a chance of surviving. And believe me, when you want to survive as much as I want to survive, when you want to survive as much as I want to survive, you will find that empowerment within yourself to get up and move. And it's not easy because right now breathing is very difficult, but I have to stay active. So aside from just that knowledge that I need to survive, I have my husband that I want to survive with. Survival isn't just about myself anymore.
Yeah.
It's about my niece who's turning a year old in a couple of weeks.
Oh,
yay. It's about my husband. It's about my parents. It's about my brothers. It's about a whole team of people. So I try to think of them every day to empower myself right now.
Yeah, and I think a strong tool I've always used to empower sort of myself, especially if I'm in a really bad flare or having multi-organ system sort of issues at the same time that make it very challenging. I always remind myself to be able to allow myself to feel sad and to wallow and give myself that moment of embracing and allowing myself to feel that way, but then also sort of giving myself that cutoff of going, okay, Dominique, we're done. We felt sorry for ourselves. Now we're going to move forward and not sit in that feeling, but allowing yourself to feel the high moments and the low moments and embracing both, I think, is a really strong way of sort of giving yourself the courage and the choice of feeling upset over situations, but then also moving past them because you have to continue moving forward.
Absolutely. I agree with you completely.
And even kind of going off of that too, I would want to, in those moments of sort of if self-doubt or it is a bad health day or you're sort of dealing with lots of different sort of outside elements that make life challenging, how do you sort of reflect on that inner monologue of feeling sort of a discomfort or having a feeling of sadness or issues with health or work? What are sort of things that you like to remind yourself in that inner monologue to repower sort of and empower yourself?
For me, it's writing.
Yeah. So
it's not really so much an internal monologue because I just put it out. Like if I'm really having a rough time, I'll just sit down and write it out. And I put it into words. So it becomes kind of external and it almost feels like a release for me.
Yeah.
And again, it's kind of just like reminding myself why I'm fighting every day. It really, that's how I deal with it. I mean, it's not easy. And I struggle a lot, but I try to get it out of my system, and I try to, like you said, allow yourself to be sad sometimes and then pick yourself up.
Yeah, and a really strong tool I always use when I tell people is even with my older sister as well, if she feels really upset for me or she feels frustrated and I can sense that, I always turn to her and I'll say, Erica, I said, if the shoe were on the other foot and you were the chronically ill sibling, would you want me to feel as upset all day long as you're feeling for me right now? Sort of turn the advice. And that's what I'll even tell myself. Would I want my sister or my boyfriend to be in this sort of state of doubt or burden or frustration for as long as I am? Because I would tell them, no, I want to help you guys move through it. I want you to feel happy and move through sort of the bad moments and embrace the good ones. So sort of that advice of what would you tell somebody close to you to do if they had the same emotions that you were having?
Well, I mean, I kind of wrote that out in the Out magazine article.
Yeah.
I wrote an open letter to my husband's future lover. I mean, and that was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, was accept and acknowledge the fact that I probably won't be the last person he loves in his lifetime, because my illness is likely going to take me before he's not here, you know, and I want him to find love. He deserves that. So I've had to put a lot of thought into it and try to help him navigate it too, and make sure he feels that he's loved right now, but that he can accept love again in the future, and he can give love again in the future. And I encourage anyone who's listening to this to take a minute to read that article, because it really was a lot of thought that I put into it. And it was received very well by a lot of people.
Yes, I'm gonna make sure we're gonna link that Out magazine article that you wrote, because it was something. Even your situation is singular to you and your husband, but it's something that so many other people go through. But it's something, how you wrote about that is also something so many people who aren't in that situation but are in relationships where there is that give and take, and those sort of the fluctuation of all types of relationships. You really tapped into an emotion that so many people in the chronic illness community are in at different points. And it's a wonderful read to have somebody like yourself really tapping into those sort of undiscussed sort of emotional parts of living with a chronic illness and having relationships with people. And just also a shout out to your husband, because he's awesome. So mini shout out there. And kind of going off of what we were just talking about as well with these wonderful relationships that we have, I really wanted to end on allowing you to kind of talk about a big thing we always say is with your activism through your artistic projects like Sort of Supportive, like your book, like your activism work and what you get to talk about now with the chronic illness community, organ donation, the LGBTQ community. And that's really about sort of disrupting the stigmas or disrupting the norms that are currently there. I really wanted to know, what would you sort of suggest to other young people that want to be able to kind of crack the molds that they feel that they're stuck in and sort of embrace themselves authentically, professionally, and in work, ways that you would suggest people sort of being able to do that?
So I understand fully the difficult balance having a chronic illness takes when it comes to personal and professional life. Mm-hmm. You got to figure out where your lines are, where your boundaries are.
Yeah.
And then it adds another scale to it when you are also dealing with your sexuality, which I've learned there's quite a few people in the chronic illness community who deal with that as well. Mm. I think that it's easy for me to say, just be yourself. And I know it's not that easy. Take it one step at a time.
Yeah.
Talk to one person first who you feel closest to.
Yeah.
And open up as much as you can with that one person. And then kind of figure out how to navigate it with that person. And I'm sure that person will be there for you to learn how to do it again.
Yeah.
And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. Mm-hmm. In your professional life, it's you just have to find the balance of who needs to know first. Mm-hmm. And by that, I mean, if something happens with your chronic condition, does somebody at work need to know?
Yeah.
And then also who you want to know. Like people at work who may feel a little cold to you, and you're like, you know what? I don't think they're going to handle this well, and I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
You don't have a right. You don't need to tell them. They don't have a right to know.
Yeah.
But there might be somebody who's softer to you at work, and you might need that ally in your job. So, find those people in both your personal and professional life that are very kind to you, mm-hmm. and slowly find a way to navigate through that. For me, there was no slowness about it. Like, it just was very public about my chronic illness my whole life, and then all of a sudden very public about my sexuality. So I'm not the best example of how to do that, because I kind of went against the grain.
Just a little.
But I do remain private about a lot of things.
Yeah.
Including my husband's identity, because it's important to me.
Yeah.
And to him, mm-hmm. and to our family. So, it's about finding that balance. And I believe people who have chronic illnesses are stronger than any other person in the world.
100%.
I mean, we really have to learn to navigate life and death at the same time. So I really commend everyone who has an illness or disability who is able to do that.
That's the perfect way to end this episode. I love how you said that too, is just the actual strength that the chronic illness community has individually and then collectively as a group is overwhelmingly different than any other community that you could be part of. So really using it as a tool and an asset in your personal life and professional life is the best way of feeling empowered in everything that you do.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you.
Well, guys, I'm so sad to say this, but this is the end of our episode with Travis. Obviously, you see us all the time interacting on social media, so you see this all the time with us. But I wanted to, before we go, I wanted to not only thank you guys for supporting InvisiYouth chat sessions and always supporting InvisiYouth charity with our events, our leadership programming, our virtual programming, like the podcast. All of those donations go to providing all of these amazing resources and opportunities and events for these incredible young people so they can become as wildly amazing as Travis Flores. So that's where that sort of financial support goes for us, and we're always so appreciative of it as well. And all those links for us are always going to be in the description below. But also I wanted to make sure everyone can find you, Travis, and what you have going on. So let all of our listeners and viewers get to know your handles and where they can find all of your amazing projects.
Sure. The Instagram and Twitter handles are the same, and it's just at Travis Flores. If you prefer Facebook, it's facebook.com/official_Travis Flores. And I do my best to support every organization and also individually people who have chronic illnesses, including InvisiYouth. So if you are someone out there who needs support, I'm open to talking with you. I can't always promise an immediate response, but I do my best. Today I'm wearing the Mighty and the Maddie Stone's Just Breathe hat. So, I'm pretty, I support as much as I can. So I really, really care for people who have illness and for people like yourself who do things and give platforms to people like us.
Oh, thank you so much. And like I said, I absolutely adore you. Everyone knows that you're just one of the most amazing and special people to me. So I'm always so grateful to not only get to work with you and have you on the show as our returning guest, but then also to get to have our friendship all year long. I'm always so thankful for you.
All right. Happy 25th.
Oh, hey, happy 25th episode. And so, like always, you can find InvisiYouth at Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at InvisiYouth. You can find us on our YouTube channel or on all audio podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, everywhere you can find us. Make sure you subscribe, thumbs up, likes, 5 stars, all of the above. And make sure that you guys follow Travis, you follow InvisiYouth, and we will get to see you soon in our next episode. Bye, everyone.
Bye.